This story centers around two young lovers, Osei Boamah and Ewe, who fall in love against all odds. Osei Boamah, a determined and strong-willed young man, is the heir to the Ashanti throne. His position comes with immense responsibility and expectations. Ewe, a graceful and resolute woman, is the daughter of a highly influential figure in the Ewe Traditional Council. Her upbringing has been shaped by her family's status and the cultural values of her tribe. Despite their different tribal backgrounds and the pressures from their families and communities, Kofi and Ewe found themselves drawn to each other as though a force beyond their control was pushing them towards each other. What do you think will happen? Can they forge ahead together or give up in the face of strong objections from both sides of their families? Before we continue, please remember to subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you. Osei Boamah stood at the edge of the festival, feeling an odd sense of unease despite the lively celebration. The rhythmic drums called to him, yet his heart felt out of sync. It was harvest time, in the countryside of Ademudua, a season of abundance, where the fruits of labor were celebrated in joyous festivities. The air was thick with the scent of roasted maize, freshly made yam fufu, and groundnut soup bubbling on large pots. The lively village was filled with movement, laughter, and rhythmic drumming. The village square buzzed with activity as children played, kicking up red dust, while women in colorful kente cloths moved gracefully, carrying harvest-laden bowls, jugs, and baskets. Men in traditional attire, adorned with beads and patterns, gathered in quiet conversation. The deep rhythm of the drums filled the air, marking the festival's peak. It was a time of celebration, where the hard work of the seasons past was given thanks to the ancestors, and the bonds between the tribes were reaffirmed. The Ashantis and Ewes, two tribes with distinct cultures, practices, and a history marked by rivalry, came together during this time, setting aside their differences for the sake of unity. The Harvest Festival was seen as an opportunity to show off the pride of their people, their artistry, their foods, and their dance. Despite the festive atmosphere, an underlying tension remained. The Ashanti, known for their regal traditions and warriors, had long dominated the region, while the Ewe, proud of their farming heritage, had a history of conflict with them. Years of disputes and misunderstandings left a lingering animosity. Though elders preached peace, the younger generation, like Osei Boamah, remained cautious and wary of the fragile relationship between the tribes. Osei Boamah, the son of Chief Ademudua, had been groomed for leadership since birth. His life had been filled with lessons on how to wield power, protect his people, and preserve his tribe's legacy. As the heir to the Ashanti throne, Osei Boamah's future was already written out for him, a future where his loyalties were expected to lie with his people and his tribe above all else. He had been raised to uphold the traditions of his ancestors, to be the protector of the village, and to one day lead his people with the same strength and wisdom as his father, the chief. A heavy weight pressed on him, the expectations of his future, a path seemingly set in stone. Though strong and capable, he remained still, detached from the joy around him. Stories of warriors and kings had always felt distant, but now, for the first time, he questioned his place in the world. As he scanned the crowd, searching for distraction, his gaze settled on a woman among those preparing food. She was not doing anything remarkable, just stirring a pot with quiet grace, yet something about her drew his attention. In that moment, amidst the festival's energy and his own uncertainty, she stood out, offering an unspoken intrigue that made him linger. She was of the Ewe tribe, and he recognized her immediately. Her name was Ewe. Her beauty was striking, but it was not the kind of beauty that demanded attention. No, it was more subtle. It was in the quiet confidence of her movements, the ease with which she carried herself. Her skin, dark and smooth, glowed in the light of the fading sun, and her hair, long and thick, cascaded down her back like a waterfall. She was unlike anyone Osei Boamah had ever met, and though he had seen her many times from a distance, he had never paid her much attention. Osei Boamah was drawn to the woman's quiet grace, her presence seemingly detached from the festival's chaos, yet fully focused on her task. For a brief moment, their eyes met, stirring something deep within him. Embarrassed, he looked away, unsettled by emotions he had never felt before. He had been taught that Ashanti and Ewe were too different, their history too divided for any real connection. No Ashanti would marry an Ewe. It was an unspoken rule passed down through generations. Shaking his head, Osei Boamah tried to dismiss the feeling. He had a duty, a path set for him. His father's teachings echoed in his mind. Leadership required sacrifice, and personal feelings had no place when tradition and responsibility weighed on his shoulders. But Efe was a force he could not ignore. She had a quiet strength that mirrored his own, and though they came from two different worlds, Osei Boamah felt an undeniable connection. As the festival continued, Osei Boamah tried to immerse himself in the drums and laughter, but his gaze kept drifting to Efe. He told himself it was just his imagination, yet the more he watched her, the stronger his feelings grew. It wasn't just attraction, it was something deeper, both thrilling and terrifying. He realized he couldn't ignore it. He had to understand it, even if it meant challenging everything he had been taught. But as the heir to the Ashanti throne, his path was already set. Now, he stood at a crossroads between duty to his people and the desires of his heart. But as Osei Boamah watched her laugh with the other women, his mind wandered to the idea of breaking the traditions that had held his people apart from the Ewe. He knew the consequences. He had heard the stories from his elders, warning him that such things were against the will of the gods. But there was something irresistible about Efe. Her presence stirred something deep within him, a sense of longing for something more than the life his father had mapped out for him. He had been around beautiful women, of course, but there was something different about Efe. She wasn't just another woman to admire. There was an energy about her that called to him, something that went beyond physical attraction. "Are you just going to stand there, Osei Boamah?" his friend Kwabena asked, nudging him playfully with his elbow. "You're looking at her like she's the sun itself." Osei Boamah blinked, realizing he had been staring for far too long. He gave a half-hearted laugh, trying to mask the tension building inside him. "I was just watching," he said, his voice slightly strained. Kwabena raised an eyebrow. "Watching? You look like you're about to walk across the river and ask for her hand in marriage right now." Osei Boamah shook his head quickly, trying to shake off the unusual feelings that were stirring within him. No, he replied. "I'm just thinking about the food. I've been away from the table too long." His friend chuckled and walked off, but Osei Boamah remained rooted to the spot for a moment longer. His gaze returned to Efe, who was now laughing with her friends as they prepared a large pot of soup. There was no doubt that she had noticed him watching her, and Osei Boamah wondered if she felt the same strange pull that he did. Could it be possible? The evening progressed, but Osei Boamah's mind remained preoccupied. Every so often, he would glance over at Efe, only to find her looking back at him. Each fleeting look only deepened the tension between them. His friends, his family, they all knew the boundaries that should never be crossed. But the feeling he had in his chest was undeniable. Osei Boamah had never been one to shy away from a challenge. And yet this was different. This was not a battle he could easily win. As the moon rose higher in the sky, the festival reached its peak. The drumming grew louder, and the dancers swirled in wild patterns, their bodies moving in harmony with the rhythm of the drums. But Osei Boamah felt disconnected from the revelry, his thoughts drifting to Efe. There had to be a way to speak to her, to learn more about her, without drawing attention. The path to forbidden love was fraught with danger, but Osei Boamah felt the pull too strongly to ignore it. As the night wore on, the villagers began to retreat to their homes, the evening's festivities winding down. Osei Boamah's friends began to make their way toward the exit, and Osei Boamah followed reluctantly, his eyes scanning the crowd for one last glimpse of Ewe. But it was then that he saw her, alone, standing just a few paces away from where he stood. She was watching him, her eyes calm, yet intense. Their eyes met, and this time there was no turning away. Slowly, cautiously, Osei Boamah stepped toward her. For a long moment, they stood facing each other, the air between them charged with the weight of their unspoken thoughts. The distant sounds of the village seemed to fade into silence. "I didn't expect to see you here," Osei Boamah said, his voice low but steady. Ewe smiled, though there was a hint of hesitation in her expression. "Neither did I." And in that moment, Osei Boamah knew. He knew that this was the beginning of something impossible, something dangerous, but something he could not deny. This was the start of a forbidden love that would defy the boundaries of tribe, of family, and of history itself. But as they stood there, their hearts racing, neither of them could foresee the challenges that awaited them, the struggles they would face, the sacrifices they would make, and the consequences that would unfold as a result of their love. As time passed, the village returned to its routine, but Osei Boamah couldn't forget the fleeting moments shared with Ewe. Each time he saw her from a distance, his heart raced, and when their eyes met, there was a spark he couldn't ignore. It felt as though fate was drawing them together, despite the deep divide between their tribes. Osei Boamah, raised to honor the traditions of his ancestors, knew the rules were clear, but this feeling for Ewe was not something he could easily dismiss. Ewe too found herself lost in thought, replaying the brief moment when Osei Boamah's gaze had locked with hers. The intensity of his look was different from the men of her tribe, stirring something new within her. Raised amidst long-standing distrust between the Ewe and Ashanti tribes, she understood the boundaries that shaped their world. Her father, a respected farmer, had already begun planning her future, one that did not involve an Ashanti man. Yet under the stars, Ewe wondered, what if this connection was worth defying tradition? Osei Boamah and Ewe's first meeting outside the festival happened by chance, or perhaps fate. One evening, Osei Boamah went on a stroll to clear his head. Lost in thought, he found himself at the river where Ewe was washing her hands at the river's edge. The sight of her, peaceful and unaware of his presence, stirred something within him. He hesitated, unsure whether to speak or leave quietly. Before he could decide, Ewe looked up, their eyes locking in a moment filled with unspoken meaning. Gathering courage, Osei Boamah greeted her, surprised by how natural it felt to say her name. Ewe returned the greeting with a nervous but genuine smile, noting her surprise at seeing him there. Their conversation began awkwardly, but soon flowed with ease. Ewe explained that she had been washing vegetables in preparation for her father's upcoming harvest, while Osei Boamah mentioned his stroll to clear his thoughts. As they spoke, the weight of tribal boundaries and expectations seemed to lift. Osei Boamah asked about the Ewe people, expressing genuine interest in their traditions. Ewe described how her people lived in harmony with nature, respecting the land and ancestral spirits. Their conversation revealed curiosity rather than animosity, a stark contrast to the long-standing tensions between their tribes. Time slipped by unnoticed until the evening air grew cooler. Ewe, suddenly aware of the impropriety of their meeting, expressed her concern. She reminded Osei Boamah that their people would never approve of their interactions. Her voice was filled with uncertainty, yet Osei Boamah's resolve was unwavering. He confessed that he didn't care about societal expectations. He cared about her. Ewe's initial reaction was one of fear and doubt. She knew the consequences of defying tribal norms, and admitted that their conversation had already crossed forbidden lines. Yet Osei Boamah's sincerity and determination resonated with her. He pleaded with her not to walk away, insisting that their connection was worth exploring despite the challenges. Caught between the pull of her heart and the weight of her tribe's expectations, Efe struggled to make sense of her feelings. Still, she admitted that she felt something for Osei Boamah, though she didn't fully understand it. Osei Boamah encouraged her to take a chance, to walk this uncertain path together. After a moment of searching his face for any sign of doubt, Efe found only sincerity. With a hesitant but meaningful nod, she agreed to take things one step at a time. Her quiet words sealed their fate, marking the beginning of a journey fraught with obstacles, but filled with the promise of something life-changing. Their meeting by the river became a pivotal moment, symbolizing the courage to defy tradition in the pursuit of love and understanding. Osei Boamah and Efe began meeting in secret, finding solace by the river and in hidden forest spots. In these moments, they shared dreams and fears, defying the expectations imposed by their tribes. Osei Boamah admired Efe's deep connection to nature, while she discovered his yearning for a life beyond tradition. Their bond grew stronger despite the ever-present danger of discovery. Aware of the severe consequences, they knew their love was forbidden, a quiet rebellion against generations of division. Yet neither could turn away, having come to see each other as more than rivals, but as kindred spirits seeking freedom and connection. Osei Boamah and Efe's secret relationship grew stronger over time, despite the increasing difficulty of hiding it from their tribes. Each meeting carried the weight of potential discovery and the looming consequences of their forbidden love. Their world, once familiar and predictable, now felt dangerous, filled with risks they couldn't ignore. Yet they continued to defy expectations, finding solace in each other's company. Under the cover of darkness, they met in hidden spots by the river or forest, far from watchful eyes. In these private moments, they shared their dreams and frustrations. Osei Boamah spoke of his feelings of entrapment by the responsibilities imposed by his lineage. The expectation to become a chief and uphold his tribe's honor left him yearning for a life of his own choosing. Efe, too, understood the burden of tradition. Raised to be a dutiful daughter, she longed for freedom to make her own choices, including whom to love. Despite the joy their bond brought, their love was shadowed by looming pressures. Efe's family had begun plans for her to marry Kwasi, the son of a powerful Ewe elder, a union that would strengthen ties between their families. Osei Boamah faced similar expectations from his father, who was determined to find him an Ashanti wife to uphold their tribe's honor. They met at their usual spot and informed each other on the latest developments. Osei Boamah, determined and vulnerable, expressed his desire to break free from societal constraints. "I want to choose my own path, and I want to choose you," he told Efe. His heartfelt declaration mirrored her own hidden desires, but the dangers of their love loomed large. Efe acknowledged the danger, reminding Osei Boamah of the consequences they faced. Discovery could lead to banishment, the loss of their families, and unforgivable disgrace. Though Osei Boamah was willing to sacrifice everything for their love, Efe's heart ached at the thought of losing everything they had ever known. Their love was a rebellion against centuries of division between the Ashanti and Ewe tribes. Efe's fears and tears reflected the peril they faced, while Osei Boamah's determination remained steadfast. He vowed to fight for their love, regardless of the obstacles. Efe, torn between love and duty, whispered her desire to try, despite the uncertainties ahead. They knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but their hearts had made a choice. The fight for their love was just beginning, and neither Osei Boamah nor Efe could turn back now. Together, they embraced the uncertainty, ready to defy tradition in pursuit of a life shaped by their own choices and love for each other. One evening, as they walked along a secluded path near the river, they encountered men from both tribes, including an Ashanti elder. The elder's stern questioning exposed their forbidden relationship. Osei Boamah, with a steady but pounding heart, openly declared his love for Efe, defying centuries of enmity between the Ashanti and Ewe tribes. The elder, shocked and indignant, warned of dire consequences, accusing Osei Boamah of dishonoring both tribes. Despite the looming danger, Osei Boamah stood resolute, expressing his belief in creating a future unbound by old rivalries. Efe, trembling but determined, echoed his sentiments, declaring her love for Osei Boamah and her refusal to live in fear. The elder's disdainful response foreshadowed inevitable punishment, as he condemned their love and promised repercussions. Osei Boamah and Efe knew their choice would have far-reaching consequences for their families and communities. Yet, in the face of rejection and hostility, their love remained unwavering. They embraced the uncertain path ahead, determined to face whatever challenges arose together. Their defiant love became a symbol of hope, courage, and the desire to break free from oppressive traditions. The days following Osei Boamah and Efe's public declaration of their love were filled with tension and danger. Whispers circulated rapidly in the village, and the elders of both the Ashanti and Ewe tribes were in angry, disappointed deliberations. Osei Boamah and Efe's love, though pure, became a source of strife between their families and tribes, creating an impending storm of consequences. Osei Boamah felt the heavy weight of his decision, knowing his love for Efe would be met with fierce opposition. The tribe's respect for him and his father's leadership legacy were now at odds with his heart's desire. Efe felt guilt and fear of being torn from her people. Her father's anger and his clear expectations for her to marry Kwasi, the son of a prominent Ewe elder, left her suffocated by the pressure of duty. As days passed, hostility from the villagers grew. Osei Boamah faced cold stares and hushed conversations, his friends distancing themselves. His love for Efe was seen as a betrayal of Ashanti tradition. Efe, too, felt the strain as her family, especially her father, grew distant and angry. The pressure on Osei Boamah and Efe grew as the elders of the Ashanti and Ewe tribes tried to separate them. Council meetings and family gatherings were held, with threats made against their families. The tribe's leaders believed that their union could not be tolerated, and the consequences would be severe. Osei Boamah's father, once a strong and wise leader, was now consumed by anger and shame. He confronted Osei Boamah, accusing him of dishonoring the tribe and their ancestors. Osei Boamah, you are the future of the Ashanti people, but you have betrayed us for a woman from the Ewe tribe. How could you do this? His father demanded. Osei Boamah stood firm. I love Efe. She is not the enemy. Our ancestors taught us to respect others. Why doesn't that respect extend to her and her people? You have broken the sacred trust that binds us, his father replied. If you continue with this, you will be exiled and never return. Osei Boamah, resolute, chose to leave with Efe. Then I will leave. We will live our lives the way we choose. His father turned away. You will never be welcome here again. You will never be my son. Despite the heartbreak, Osei Boamah and Efe remained unwavering in their commitment to each other. Efe's father also confronted her, expressing deep disappointment and demanding she leave. Efe, heartbroken, pleaded for understanding, but her father insisted she had betrayed their family. Despite the hostility and heartbreak, Osei Boamah and Efe remained committed to each other and their love. Osei Boamah and Efe made the difficult decision to leave their village, knowing it meant severing ties with their families, tribes, and past. Despite the heavy price, they were willing to pay it for their love. They left in the dead of night, under the cold silver moonlight, stepping silently into the unknown, carrying only what they could manage, and set out with no plan or destination in mind. The world beyond their village was vast and uncertain, but they believed that as long as they had each other, they would find a way to survive. In the end, they chose their love, regardless of the cost. Their journey marked a painful departure from their tribes, families, and all they had ever known. Each step away from their village brought freedom, but also a deep sense of loss. The towering trees of the forest, once boundaries between Ashanti and Ewe lands, now symbolize their severed ties to the past.
Thanks for watching. Please help us by subscribing to our channel. Let us know what you think in the comments. Until next time, bye.